Magritte was a beloved and famous surrealist artist of the 20th century, known for his thought-provoking content, such as the infamous Son of Man painting that was published to the art world in 1964. His surrealistic work, a form of art known for its element of surprise and unconventional nature, meant to empower the dreamlike unconscious mind, was both mind-bending and eye-opening in its strange, ghostly aesthetic and its uncanny charm. And while any of his masterpieces are worthy of mention, the one I would like to bring to your attention today is this oil on canvas painting from 1928 that Magritte displayed earlier in his career during a time period in which he was less appreciated for his seemingly provocative paintings. The name of this painting being The Lovers. Have you ever had frustrated desires in a relationship that wasn't meant to be, or felt a sense of isolation in the one you are already in? I believe Magritte taps into these feelings intentionally or unintentionally in this chilling and ominous painting on a love we are not meant to see, a love we are not meant to know. Before we begin analyzing the painting itself, I think we should define the painting with some much needed backstory. You see, Magritte was a young boy filled with trauma and tragedy as he became an orphan at the tender age of 14. His mother committed suicide by drowning herself in the River Sambre in his homeland of Belgium. Apparently, his mother had made several attempts to kill herself, causing her husband to lock her in a bedroom which she escaped from at one point and was missing for days. That is until her dead body was discovered close to a nearby river. The young Rene had, according to some accounts, watched as they dragged her lifeless corpse from the water with her nightgown having been wrapped around her face. This memory must have simmered into his mind as he grew older in life and pursued his passion of commercial art. As he became older, he moved to Belgium's capital and initially painted impressionist works, which were all the rage at the time. He experimented with different art styles until he discovered the ironic and thought-provoking work of surrealism. His enigmatic, almost allegorical communication method was a style distinction that Magritte had procured that separated him from other surrealistic painters at the time. The elements of his painting are often described as looking superimposed in different composite layers. His paintings often convey a common theme of obscured faces, and some have made the case that perhaps Magritte had taken inspiration from the tragedy of his youth by perpetuating these themes of facial obscurity or enshrouding by cloth in his works. A claim that Magritte vehemently denied. An alternative theory explaining the inspiration behind Magritte's odd and mysterious work was his fascination to pulp fiction characters like the famous masked and mysterious fictional French thief Vandals. He is often portrayed in film and pulp fiction illustrations as disguised with a cloth or stocking, his identity never being revealed and his face always concealed. When we observe this painting, The Lovers, we observe a couple, a woman in a red embroidered sleeveless dress and a man in a dark suit, moving closer to one another in a very affectionate embrace, kissing one another through the white sheets that separate them from one another, which cleverly conceal their appearances. We are taken off guard by our inability to look on as voyeurs to a private and very much intimate affair. What is known is that something intimate is taking place. What is not known is the information behind the identity of the people in the setting or location that this is taking place in. The only clue we seem to have is that a pillar is standing adjacent to the couple and that they appear to be against what could be the backdrop of a storm in the distance. There appears to be a ceiling, side wall, and back wall. The vagueness of the background is probably intentional, as Magritte intended to cinematically frame the subjects in such a way that we are meant to focus more of our attention on the mysterious couple. When observing the figures more closely, we see that the man is in a leaning position over the woman while the woman tilts her head and leans affectionately to receive the man's kiss. The woman is positioned in such a way that we see the more prominent profile of the man's face. The white sheets or veils covering their faces seem tighter in the front and loosened in the back. The figures seem to be missing a sense of something: communication, sense of touch, inability to express themselves. They are prisoners of their own ambiguity. Because of the cloth that obscures them, they seem so isolated, as if they are so far apart despite their obvious closeness in frame. The room seems like an afterthought in comparison to the prime element that seems to convey the most interest in this painting: the mysteriousness of the two figures. In the age in which we live, where love is a physically distant thought in some circumstances, just a swipe, click, or like away, the idea of contactless love is not a new concept to us. Perhaps what he was getting at was that love can be both isolating and pleasurable, and that the physical world does not need to fully define it. One can often gaze at the couple and see the isolation and struggle, a sense of forbidden love, of a love defined that draws us in, a love not meant to be seen, not meant to be shared, not meant to be known. It conveys a love that is binding but isolating, a kind of love that conveys an aura of uncertainty and fragility. It makes one think about the closeness of intimacy, of vulnerability, and yet it almost seems to speak of how hidden we are inside. It shows the limitations of affections, the plight of material meaning, and the feelings many of us might share in observing the haunted reality of a love not meant to be shown, not meant to be spoken of, a love that might not exist at all. There are many different interpretations or meanings people apply to this painting. The fabric that distances the couple seems to imply that this rather intimate and transformative act of love is missing vulnerability that comes with love, or that rather there is an isolation or a tension that prevents the love to seem genuine, to seem real. Some suggest that the painting is seeking to convey the sense of disconnection that comes from hiding oneself, a lack of unveiling ourselves from our most intimate affections. Magritte was often known to use a sense of metaphorical symbolism in his works, and so one could have two almost opposite metaphorical interpretations to its meaning, that the lack of face-to-face contact could be interpreted as a kind of blind love, or quite the opposite, of a more passionate, senseless craving that brings us closer together. Or perhaps Magritte was meaning to say that the blind love that the mysterious couple has for one another means that this couple does not need to physically see each other to find a common connection, bond, love, and or desire. While this painting is the most recognizable and famous, what many do not know is that this painting was merely one in several that were part of a collection. Here are all four pictures based on numerical assignments. As one can see, the second painting of the couple reveals a starkly different tone. We observe the couple once again with their white sheets covering their faces, posed as if they are being photographed. They stand side by side, showing off to the viewers a sense of closeness with their relationship, and yet it all seems staged. The next two pictures are even more bizarre, as a disembodied head of a man seemingly floats in midair, kissing what seems to be the woman from the previous picture, except that they are not covered by cloth. They are not seeking to hide their desires. They are also in a location that looks somewhat like the first. Finally, the last painting shows a young woman who looks much different than the other, sitting against a rock making out with a floating head seen in the previous painting. Red is often associated with lust, longing, and frustration, while the color black is often symbolic of the shallow emptiness of death. The color of purity, white, is shown less and is more prominent in the cloth that binds the couple in the first painting. The veils could be of whitish or gray color to demonstrate the confines of purity, or perhaps to show that the purity is vanishing away from them. My hunch is that this painting may be revealing in a metaphorical sense the double life of adulterous affairs. The first two pictures show a love that is binding and isolating, one that is not being seen to its full extent. The other shows love that is revealed in all its glory, that isn't hidden and seems practically unearthly, an affection so strong and bold that it isn't suppressed by a veil of isolation and disconnect. Bear in mind that in Magritte's personal life, he was known to have had an affair during this marriage, and his wife allegedly had an affair during a similar time frame. Perhaps Magritte was expressing this phenomenon of unrequited love and visually telling the story of the affairs by showing his marriage with the couple that are bound by white sheets, and revealing later the affairs that occurred between his wife and himself, shown in the different paintings, with the heads of the men seeming to be different people and the women also appearing to be different people as well. Ultimately, I think Magritte challenges the viewer to look at love and human affection with more observance to the ties that bind that intimacy together. So, all this leads to the question: what is the true meaning behind this painting from the actual artist's perspective? Well, according to the artist Rene Magritte, painting is visible images which conceal nothing, he wrote. They evoke mystery, and indeed, when one sees one of my pictures, asks oneself this simple question: what does it mean? It does not mean anything, because mystery means nothing either. It is unknowable. So, with that knowledge, suffice to say, the painting is up to interpretation and is meant to provoke many interpretations due to its mystery. Being the surrealistic and enigmatic painter that he was, it seems clear that if Magritte had told us about the meaning behind the picture, it would have ruined the mystery and elusiveness he was seeking to convey, which would have defeated the point. Surrealism is meant to point us in the direction of unexplainable imagery and let us individually convey its meaning that most fits our perceptions. This art movement sought to make us peer inward and perceptualize things individually, whether that is within the conscious or unconscious world. While they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, this painting by Rene Magritte is enough to make one speechless by its eeriness and uncertainty of meaning. The meaning is interpretive and could reveal the intricateness of love in a post-COVID age, one defined by technological isolation and lack of definability, a ghostly fleeting sense of connection in a self-indulging age, a disconnected relationship narrative that makes as little sense as the paintings themselves. All these surreal thoughts can help explain its intention based on the individual's experiences, all shaped on the individual, just as Rene Magritte would have wanted. Thanks for watching this far in our collection of fine art reflections. If you subscribe, like, and share, we will make sure to shout you out in our next video. Enjoy the summer, and culture on, my friends.